Watch this. This is the technique I learned. Tell me if it's any good. Good morning. How are you doing? That's, I went to a course on... That's it.
They didn't teach you to be on mic, though.
On mic. Let's do it. On mic for the video camera. I went to a course at Bristol on Thursday, really good, about preaching better, how to preach better. You'll be pleased to hear. And one of the things he told me is he said, well, not me, he didn't tell this to me, he told us. He said, don't just like stand at the front and ruffle your notes when you start. He said do a curve your run in. So it's like, good morning. It's like, it's making a bit of an entrance. I thought, okay. All these little things help. Talking about marginal gains, just that 1% extra that's going to help.
There's a new additional technique, which is if you've got a heckler in the congregation, put them on the stage with you.
This is not going to go well.
I am supposed to be here. I haven't just sort of stayed sitting here just to be awkward. But
he usually heckles from there.
But I do like having a microphone to heckle through. So.
Okay, so this is what we're going to say. We're going to present our New Build Sunday and just talk a little bit about where we think we're going with the new build and take a temperature of where we're at as a church and just look at the possibilities and just see how we feel we should proceed with this. It's quite an exciting time. And we're talking about vision at the moment. This is our third week of looking at vision. We looked at the autumn vision. Then we looked at the idea book club, which we had to postpone because I couldn't get back from Bristol in time. By the way, book club launches this Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Please come if you can to that. I'll be putting lots out about it this week. But today we're looking at New Build Sunday and just sharing our journey with the idea of a new building. This is why Martin's up here, because he's been on the working group that we've been looking at it, but also as a wider leaders we've been looking at it as well. So Paul's going to share a bit, and Terry and Chris, and Tony and Susie by video as well. So all very exciting. But obviously we've got to link it in with spiritual input as well. And probably 20 years ago, well, actually, before I tell you this, I'll just tell you where we are going on this, because it's nice to know how this morning is going to fan out. So we're just going to give a bit of a presentation about the journey so far, invite one or two others to do that. And we are going to have a short question and answer session as well, which Martin's going to lead before the end of the service. So because it's about our journey together if we're going to do this. It's not about just a presentation, so it's always got to be two-way. So get ready with your Q&A and a little bit of group discussion. And then following that, on Friday the 11th of October, we're going to have a night down here where we go into a bit more detail about new build and what that would involve and figures and things like that, and we can think about a few more specific details. So today's going to be more of an overview, but do get your Q&A ready for the end. So exciting times. And I just want to go back about 20 years to when Michael Epton came here, who was our regional leader at the time, and he spoke this word for us from Isaiah chapter 54, verse 1 to 4. And we'll just put that up so you can read it. And I'll just go a bit into this prophetic word. This was a prophetic word, and it's good to know where it was given to at the start. This was a prophetic word which was given to Isaiah to give to Israel at a bad time. This is the interesting thing. It was given to them at their lowest time. Israel had gone into exile. Judah was soon to follow. It was given at a bad time in God's people's history. It wasn't given at a good time where they should be rejoicing and they should be looking to expand. It was given at a bad time for them. But yet, look at what God says. And this comes into, this is then brought into the new covenant as well. And it's a really good few verses. Sing, O barren woman, you who never bore a child. Burst into song, shout for joy, you who are never in labour, because more are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband, that says Lord. So what he's talking about is someone who's not in a good place. He's saying, well, you can sing because you're going to be. You're going to be in a good place. Then he goes on to say to Israel, enlarge the place of your tent, stretch your curtains wide, do not hold back, lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes, for you will spread out to the right and to the left. Your descendants will dispossess nations and settle in their desolate cities. Do not be afraid. You will not suffer shame. Do not fear disgrace. You will not be humiliated. You will forget the shame of your youth and remember no more the reproach of your widowhood. He's saying this to Israel, to God's people, when they were pretty much on their knees. They weren't in a good place. And yet he's saying these wonderful things. And Michael Epton brought that prophecy, those words to us. And he goes, this is for you, church. This is for you, church on the roundabout, here on the Isle of Wight. He's saying these words are for you. Enlarge the place of your tent. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords. Strengthen your stakes. For you will spread out to the right and to the left. And there was a real resonance when we heard that all those years ago. A few of you were probably here. Who was here when he brought that? Yeah, so a few of us were here when that came. For me, I don't know did you feel there was a resonance with that? And it's resonated with us. We haven't put it down. We haven't let it go. He's saying, enlarge the place of your tent. Don't hold back. Lengthen your cords. Strengthen your stakes. Get ready to spread out to the right and to the left. We can take that on individually in our own lives. Don't settle for less than God's got for us. Enlarge our expectations of God. Enlarge our lives. Enlarge what it's about. But also, it was with regard to the church, and it was with regard to the building. Enlarge, spread out to the right, spread out to the left. And the wonderful thing is that we've seen some of this happen, come to pass. That green over there was Council Green. When we put a door in the side, that door was a door of faith because it opened onto a chain link fence. We didn't have the green. But we were in negotiation. We knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, the green's an interesting one as well, because quite often we take steps in a direction, and we took steps in the direction of the green. We'd known, you've wanted the green forever, really, haven't you?
Church has wanted it since before I was pastor, 1977.
So the green had been abandoned. It had basically fallen out of the Island Roads contract. Everybody thought it was going to be part of what Island Roads maintained, but it never got into the contract. So nobody was maintaining it. And so we basically squatted the green. We decided that somebody needed to do something with it. So a group of people in the church started mowing the green and looking after it with no permission, no right to do it, if you like, but it was just if we didn't do it, nobody was going to it. It was right on our doorstep. So we thought we'd start taking care of it and treating it as our own. And that's what really kick-started negotiations with the council, because we were already looking after it for them anyway. They had no resources to do it, and we were then in the right place to negotiate a lease with the council.
And by the time we'd done that, we had our door in place. And then along came Drake, and I'd love to see Drake back here, but he built decking for us in a weekend, and so all of a sudden we spread out to the right as you look at it. We spread out to the right, and that gives us a lovely outdoor space now, so we can look at spreading out to the left, and that's what made us think about, we can enlarge to the left now. And we haven't just enlarged. God blessed us with people who were helping us with the green, helping to make that a really good community place, planting trees. The amount of expertise that God's brought in there is incredible. So it's so exciting what's been happening. And so we started getting into ideas, thinking about a new build, and we've thought about it on and off for quite a long time. But all of a sudden it's become a bit more of a reality. We've got a fully qualified architect on site who's actually helping to design some stuff. And this is where it became a reality. We actually thought, and we started joining together with Revive Newport, who were looking for a new youth centre, and they got quite excited about it. And And the next thing we know, Revive Newport has got a £1,500 grant to look at building a new build on this site with us. And so this money's starting to come in, and we've got an architect who we can give some of that money to pay to build it, and it's all happening. All of a sudden, you pray and you pray and you pray and you pray, and suddenly things start to happen. And this was now happening. So we've got the architect, we've got some money to pay for it, and we start getting designs built up. And you can see we just published one of the initial designs is up there as just a rough design about what could happen and some of the things that could happen there. And we started to proceed in a direction towards planning permission.
Right, I'm going to stop you again.
Yeah, stop me, go on.
Because it's quite easy to hear Tony talk about his sister, the architect. It just sounds like some sort of dodgy nepotism going on here. But actually, working with Liz has been a sort of revelation in all of this, because we've had architects look at the building before, and we had one sketch up some designs before, and they sketched up designs for a sort of churchy church, and they didn't really quite get the vision. As soon as we started talking to Liz, she got what we were trying to do, and she could really start translating that into something tangible. And not only that, but taking the things we were saying and not just drawing what we said, but actually then interpreting what we needed and coming up with better ideas and bigger ideas than we were necessarily coming up with, more clever ways of doing things. And I think that for me was a really significant point, because for anything to go forwards here, you have to have the right person on board designing the thing, or the end result's just not going to be up to scratch. So I think it's been a blessing that we've got reduced prices, but it's been a blessing that we've got somebody who's really in tune with what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so it's just like things are all coming together there, and we sung this morning, I'll walk by faith, each step by faith. And I think it's a bit like climbing Mount Everest. If you think about climbing Mount Everest, it's a humongous mountain. And if you look at it, you think, can't do it. Can't do that. But if you think, could I take a step up Everest? Think, yeah, I could do that. Oh, that step went all right. Could I take another step? Yep, that's going all right. And this is kind of what we're thinking about, just small steps, because as we take a step and we see God provide, it gives us confidence to take another step. That's true for our lives, it's true for church, it's true for anything with God. We can take a step, we see he provides, we see he cares, we see he looks after us, so we take another one. And then we take another one, we see that he's with us step by step by step. And this is what's happening. Every step we've taken in a new build direction recently, we've seen God provide for, and this is an exciting thing. So it is like a series of small steps, and what we're thinking now is we actually are quite close to what we would call base camp. Base camp, if you're going to climb Everest, you've got to get to base camp. You've got to establish a base, a solid base, where you get all your supplies to it and you take stock of the journey ahead. So we're thinking this whole project is a bit like climbing Everest. Putting a new building up here is like climbing Everest, but getting to planning permission is like getting to base camp. So we're trying to get to a place where we could look to get to our planning permission. And actually, there's not far to go, because blessings keep coming in. More money has come in, and even we're thinking, well, actually to get planning permission will cost over £800. But even recently, someone said, well, I'll fund that. So it just keeps happening. It just keeps happening. And as long as it's keeping happening, I kind of think, well, we should just keep taking those steps. Because it's really important to like walk with God. Not too fast, but not too slow. If God's with us and we're taking steps, let's go with it. And And we've just seen him bless each step so far. So.
Some of you will have heard this story already, but there's, in my life, there's one sermon I can remember. I can remember this one at the moment, but not so much by the end of the day. But there's one sermon I remember, which is basically a chap. This was 30 years ago, not quite that long.
Didn't think you were that old.
And he talked about this thing about taking steps. He said, often people, they focus on the long-term vision and the magnitude of the long-term vision, and it seems so big and so far away and so difficult to achieve. And he said, just if that's your vision, take a step in that direction. If you think you're being called to go and work in South America, learn Spanish, because that's going to be the first step you need to take on that journey. Don't start booking the airfares. Learn Spanish. Start with where you are, build on it, and then see where it goes. And so this really sort of chimes with me, particularly as I'm a pragmatist. I think I tend to be the pragmatist in this, and I want to see the sort of practical steps forward, and moving on to the next step each time is just that move it on, see what happens, see what God does.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So, like I say, we're actually quite close to getting to a place where we could get planning permission, and then we take stock and see where we go from here. And the key thing on that is God, actually I'm not talking about God here, people will fund a proper plan. They won't fund an idea. So when we get to planning permission, then we can actually ask for funding for that plan. But we can't say, we've got an idea, will you fund it? People say no. So actually, we're further down the line than we've ever been on this, and I think it's quite exciting. And like I say, this isn't just me. In fact, I've had moments of, we can do it, and moments of, no, really, it's not worth it. No. But it's not just about me, it's about the whole church, it's about the leadership team, it's about the whole of the church. And we actually talked about this at Wider Leaders, and had some good talk about it. So it'd be good to just get a little bit from Paul and Matt and Terry and Chris who were at that meeting now. Just share a bit of your thoughts. Can you come up and just tell us a few thoughts that you had on it? It's not too much. Yeah, we'll come up at the same time. And then what we'll do is we'll do some Q&A. This isn't a surprise for them because I primed them beforehand. So yeah, just for about a maximum a minute each, really, just share something about it. Say it into the microphone because for recording purposes.
And for recording purposes. Would you like to go first?
Some of this is what Tony's been talking about, because we were here 20 years ago when Michael Epton gave that word. Excuse me. And the thing that came to me last night is that we've stretched out to the right, we've stretched out to the left, and the tent's full. So we need a bigger tent, which is the idea of the new build, because the community is so involved with this church. You can see the kids at Barton School funded most of the trees that are along that wall and along the fence. There's so many people that are actually involved in this church. And when we came, it was so small that we did try to stretch out. And we did stretch out eventually to the left and to the right. And the tent's full. So we've done all the stretching, and the tent's full, so now we need a bigger tent. And that for me was where the new build came in. The fact that Tony's sister and his brother have been involved so much with this church, which we never thought would happen, but they have.
Well, that's a double miracle in itself.
Yeah, because Tom's doing the garden and Liz is doing the drawings. So to get this far, to me, is just, it's a miracle. It's amazing, because 20 years ago we didn't think we could do it, but we trusted. Yeah. And we can do it, as long as everybody else is on board. But the vision is that we can do it. We've been planning it for such a long time.
Brilliant, thank you, Chris.
And now we can do it.
Because it's like Chris was saying, we've been here for 20 years, and there's been occasions when we've thought, okay, we need to build or we need to move, and God has said, no, the time's not right, the time's not right. And as we've been saying, it's a step by step. We've had the doors done, we've had the outside done. And it's, when you're ready, it'll happen. And even though we've been here for sort of 20 years, the last few months, it's almost like, whoa, this is finally what God has wanted. And he's putting everything in place. He's given us the faith to keep going and not say, it's never going to happen, we're going to move, we're going to do. God just said, take a step. It's going to happen when you're ready for it. Because I believe if we'd had it years and years ago, it wouldn't have been the same as we've got now. And things are falling into place. People are coming on board, giving their time for free of charge. Because at the end of the day, we just want to see this church grow. The community that use it gives us an opportunity with a bigger building for them to come in. More people will come to the church, more opportunities to actually speak to them and spread the word with those as well. But you've got to have the building, and it's happening. And I'm so excited because it's like 20-year wait and it's finally coming to fruition. And we just keep the faith all the time.
Thank you, Terry. And I know Paul's obviously as a leader in the church and as a surveyor has got several thoughts on this.
How do I make my entrance? And by the way, can you just remind me?
Curved run.
Do I do
Curve
a twirl?
That's it.
Thank you. No, good morning all. Well, it's an interesting journey that we've been on, I believe, and as you've already heard, it's one that's been taking place over a considerable number of years. From a building surveyor's point of view, of course, I look at a building like this and I think to myself, well, what can we do with the existing building? And to be absolutely honest with you, there's very little. It's reached, in professional terms, the end of its economic life. In other words, any money that we spend on this building is really wasted. I don't mean it as clinical as that, but it's money that isn't very well spent. And so from a very practical point of view, a new building here is about the right solution, if that makes any sense. That's just from a very, professional point of view. The other thing that we had to consider was location. Because in some senses, there are buildings around that we could move to that were already built for us and possibly could, just with a little bit of alteration, serve the same purpose. That might be quite appealing, actually, because the roundabout can be noisy, as you know. The odd horn that hoots here and there when you're halfway through delivering your message can be putting off. But
take that as an amen.
Yes, as an amen, absolutely. I do take it as an amen. But I think you would agree with me that the location of this building is quite unique. And we believe, and I certainly believe, that God has placed this church in this position for good reason. I'm regularly encouraged by the sign that makes a proclamation that God loves you. And what an ideal place for that to be spoken out. And so we are reasonably confident as you can be, that God wants the church to be built here, wants to continue to be here. Again, I'll just share with you from a building surveyor's point of view, a practical point of view, and I'm sure John would agree with me on this, it's probably one of the worst places to build because we have very little access. I can guarantee you that the ground conditions are pretty awful and we will have to move out. We won't be able to coexist with the building over there and then they'll move us in here. So it will be quite a disruptive period of time. It will mean that the advert of this church being alive and existing may cease for a time being. What I'm rather hoping is that as like any new build, when they put the hoarding up and they put the sign up and tell you what's going on, people become inquisitive. How many of you have walked past the building site and wanted to have a little nose in? Hopefully it's not just me then. I spend most of my time looking at buildings, by the way, as I'm sure you gathered. But new buildings create new opportunities. New buildings can create a sense of something happening. And that's what we believe, don't we? We believe that our God is a God who is creative and he's about creating new things. The Bible tells me that our God isn't dormant, he isn't asleep, he isn't absent-minded of what's going on in the world and in our lives. And it's the same when you start to do a new build, I believe, that we will create a sense of something's going on. And that's part of my sort of vision for what could come out of building a new building. It's lovely to have a new building. It really is. And as we go through this process, I believe that we will start to see, as God ordains it, something very special and very unique. My personal view, my personal hope is that not only do we build new buildings here, but that we build new hearts. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Right, we could stop videoing now and pass over to Martin. Oh, no, Matt.